Ready to go in. Scared. Got everything lined up equally back here. I ran along this seam all the way down so that it's equal or very close to equal all the way down that whole seam. Also, just in double checking this line, this cabinet can open and close freely. So I think it's going to be right here. Gonna start from the back, get some cabinet screws. So all that matches up. Seems to be even matching up with some of my marks I made earlier on. Who knows when that was, but it's ready to be tied in, and then I can start adding in the slats. Alright, so now I got to tie down the bed to the actual floor. It's a pretty heavy piece, so you want to make sure you secure that down really well. And I'm going to use cabinet screws, and I think I'm going to use 2-inch. I'll try to run along my support beams, which runs lengthwise in this, and those are the ones that are glued down. But there's also some ones towards the back of the bed that I can actually tie into the cross beams that go from side to side, which are actually bolted to the van floor. So those are going to be a bit more secure. That'll give it a little bit extra hold there. So I'm going to use 2-inch. That'll go through the finished floor, the subfloor, and then hopefully into a stud. If it doesn't go into a stud, it's going to go into the styrofoam by about a 1/2 inch, which isn't a big deal. It's not going to ground out on the actual metal part. You know, ideally I'd like to keep that styrofoam whole. So in the areas that I don't have the actual vertical pieces going down, I'm going to actually shorten those up to about 1.5 inch screws. And then where I actually have the thicker pieces in the back that go across, which is 3/4, I'll be able to use the full 2-inch cabinet screws there, tie those in there as well. So it'll be solid. It'll just take some measuring and kind of figuring out where those are from front to back, and I'll use the lines on the floor as kind of a reference point. I have them drawn on tape around different parts of the van where those studs run underneath the subfloor, so I can at least have a really good solid foundation to put those into. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and pretty nervous to put this thing down permanently, but it's got to happen sooner or later. So I can do that now. And what I mean by cabinet screws is they come with this little flat head top that just gives it a little more surface area on top that allows it to hold in better. So I put masking tape kind of where my stud was, so it's about 2.5 inches. I'm going to run it 2.5 inches back from there to here for my starting piece. That'll give me a nice good solid foundation all along the whole one side. So here we go. Let's start putting these in, and my convenience later be damned. First 3 in, feels pretty solid. Didn't seem to run into anything, so keep on going along. I'll have to find a way to hold this up so I can go in there and actually tie it in, but suck this back end in pretty good, and I know there's a natural bow to the van, so I'm hoping it contours, and I hope it doesn't mess anything up along the way, but we'll see. So going 2.5 in, 1 3/4 from the edge, center, two down. Now it's really not going anywhere. So now I get to pull out the drawer, get to the next one. There she is. That one actually falls dead center into my my cross beam, so that's great. So this one actually lines up with my stud, As you can see from the tape right there, I marked that's where my stud is. So I can hit that one. It'll go in deep. It's gonna hit the cross beam that goes from side to side that's attached to the base of the van. So that's great. I'm still hitting both of these. So I'm hitting the ones that are going vertical and horizontal at the 2.5 mark. So I take into account this is an 1/8 inch. So I adjust accordingly to that. And this should be lined up perfect with that cross stud. Unfortunately, this one is just on the edge of where that cross piece goes. It goes right behind the wheel well across, so I don't think I have to offset it though. Last one, same thing. This side I can tell is raised up, so it's a little concerning. Sucked it down. Okay, now I'm going to put these casters on the bottom of the ripped down 2x4. So I took 3/4 inch off that. These are 1 1/4 inch drywall screws. So they're a little bit finer thread. Who knows if this will work. Go across diagonally. Okay, go on that, so that was kind of falling there. Should put the flat side back. And then I'll have the cross piece lay on top of this, go all the way across, and that should be easier to roll out. Alright, I'm trying to get set up here. Just measuring out between these legs. I think I'm gonna have to do this front piece first. Not sure how yet, but I'm just getting everything measured out and marked where it actually needs to be, and then I can work on actually fastening these legs to this brace piece. I need these brace pieces on the bottom to match up on either side, so I'm trying to square everything up. I've got everything mostly squared here, just using this triangle and then measuring from one base point, which is at the back, up to the front, and making sure that each one of these are level as I go back. Once I'm satisfied, I'll actually do a mark on the bottom of these pieces. Yes. And that's where I think I'm gonna have to lay it down and drill into those from the top, and then I'll have to fasten these little studs here to this main brace piece on the front. I'm actually going to screw this middle piece in first just because it's exposed. Here's where it actually slides under to kind of keep it latched in place. So I'm gonna screw that leg onto those two pieces, and then this little brace piece I'll screw into that once I get it down. Okay, I got my two middle ones in. Obviously pre-drill these with how thin these pieces are, and I used 3.5 inch screws. So I lined up the bottom with my lines there, and I also made tick marks on the top and bottom. So that's what I'm going to do for now. I think I'm going to throw some angle pieces down in there, tie those in, and at least I'll have some stability then between these two pieces, just not the straight down screws. Okay, for the outside piece I had to put this bracket on since everything's kind of connected and I'm not attaching to this. I can still go down in from the top. I do need to get these brackets on at least so I can pull everything apart and then go from the top. Got this leg squared up again and matched up with the marks up in there. So I'll put the angle iron piece in there too. Put the angle bracket in there. Not sure how well you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to try to give the people what they want. I remember when I told myself it'd be easier to do this when it was in here. Or maybe I didn't. Like, fucking seriously? It's never ending. Never fucking ending. Okay, so I got my other end done. I just want to get my support screws in here, but first I gotta... Alright, so this is the block. I just got to get my 2 support screws in here, and then I can go into the base of the leg. So just want to go halfway here, and I got to split the screws on the bracket. That one I gotta make sure I'm avoiding my main structural screw that's going down in there, so I'm just gonna put it kind of off to the side here. And again, these are 2.5 inch that I'm using. Now I can go down through the top. So I just pre-drilled that. On with 3.5 inches. The big boys. Okay, I got my bottom brace piece, just using playing cards as kind of a spacer from the front. Got these angle pieces, so those will go on each side. I have it 3 inches up from the base to the base of the cross beam, so I'm going to screw these in now, and hopefully it'll look alright. Alright, so here's what the bottom looks like. Just the angle brackets. Couple 1-inch tech screws. And it feels fairly sturdy, and now it's ready to be clamped on here, and I can maybe do the easy part, which will be putting the slats in and attaching them to the top of this. Alright, it's all clamped into place, so now I can start attaching the slats to the base piece. All the wheels are on the ground. This one's close, barely touching, but it's got a little friction, so with some weight I think it'll be fine. So we'll go ahead, and I think with these top pieces, along with the base support that goes underneath here that allows it to slide yet lock at this back side, will kind of firm it up and it won't be so loose. So I shouldn't, you know, obviously I'm not gonna need the clamps, but this at least just holds it into place while I can make sure everything's even, everything's lining up with the slat, so there's a proper spacing and that everything glides out smoothly. There's a view from that side. Looks fairly clean, unlike this area where I basically can't find anything whenever I need it. This is the slider piece that's going to go in the back. I'm going to hit it with some finishing wax and the heat gun to kind of have that absorb in. I did poly it, and before I tie this down I just want to make sure that it's going to glide underneath the slats very well, because I'm not going to get a chance to really do this again. God, I look tired. I know I probably did this in the last video when I was first building the bed, and I shouldn't have at the time, because I ended up just polying the slats. But the poly seems to have held fine, and now I'm going to actually hit those again with paste wax in between each one and on underside, and then in between each of the slats on these ridges here on the back ridge. Okay, so now we just got to fasten each of the slats. So this was my spacer to begin with. I just got to put pressure against that. That will give me an even space on each side. And we attach that flush to that back bottom piece there. And that'll be an 1.25 inch screw. And then I'm going to do 1 5/8 galvanized up here. Probably made the mistake of using drywall screws on these because this could get moist. So I'm only doing galvanized on this so I can save myself replacing half of these. Okay, I just got it marked halfway through this backboard for the first ones. I can just run the line on the rest. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This is going to be covered by a bed after all. So just putting enough pressure on, lining it up with the back. So this is where the 1.25 are going to go in. And I can countersink these a little deeper, just because it's about 1.5 inches. They're 2 3/4 inch pieces on the back. So now I kind of got that clamped. Make sure I have good pressure, and it just makes it a little bit easier on me. So this one's a little bit different in terms of where the bottom piece is and where the back piece is. I got a knot on this first one, of course. And there you go, rinse and repeat, unless you guys want to watch me do all of this in slow motion. No, we're not going to make you do that. Alright, so the problem with this design and not having the slats go over the top is that I need a piece that's going to sit down here where this back piece can rest on and be sucked up into. So I need a beveled edge, and I need to attach it to this somehow to make sure that when you're sliding it in, it just sucks it back up in, and then I have extra support there, and the middle won't sag. I'm just noticing some sagging. Not the end of the world, it just bugs me, and I want it to be as even as possible. So I just got this strip, and it's wonky, that's for sure, but it's thin enough where it won't matter, I don't think. A little over 1 inch. And what I'm gonna have to do is drill down some portholes for the screws to go into, and then I'm gonna actually route that bevel so that it'll allow the piece on the bottom to kind of get caught and then go back up in. So I'm going to go about halfway down with some screw holes about every 5 inches here, and I got some on the ends about 1.5 inches in. So I got a piece of tape on the end just so I don't go too deep, and I'll go down along the line. Alright, so that's in place. I just got to throw a couple more screws in. I wanted to test it out, make sure that it would work. Everything does slide in really nice. I'm just running this edge here and just following it along, There's some spots where there's bigger gaps than others, but the middle was my primary concern because that was sagging a lot. So I'm just pre-drilling down in into this base piece and using a galvanized 1.25" to tap into that piece. Okay, I got the memory foam in from Amazon. Gonna unroll this, let it air out. See how it feels. Okay, it's all unpacked, so just letting it kind of fill out. They say 24 to 48 hours, so we'll see how long. But the smell's actually not bad. Sometimes these can stink really bad of chemicals, but this one's not bad. So I went and bought a 6-inch memory foam mattress. It's like 130 bucks on Amazon during Prime Day. It's thick. I just went and tested it in the van, but it has to be cut down into a few different sections. I have to take off about 9 inches just to have the 2 cushions to be the size that I want. And then I'm gonna have to cut it into 2 pieces that'll make the couch and then fold out into the bed. So I'm just gonna have to take off the covers, and then this is supposedly fiberglass free, which I know is some concerns on Amazon mattresses, so at least when I cut that, there's not gonna be itchy shards everywhere. So I think I gotta cut on the bed just using like a bread knife is what I've seen people do, and probably snap a line so that I get the most even cut I can. Alright, so I just got to cut off this inside layer, and I'm just going to cut along this seam and then roll it back like a sock. Alright, so I got to take my initial piece off just to get it to the width that I want. So I marked both ends, and I'm just going to run a chalk line on that. Once again, working in limited ass space with no flat surfaces, so this is what I have to do. I'm just using a standard bread knife. I wish I had an electric, but I didn't have time. And I just got started. It's gonna be a mess, but it seems like it's working okay. Just went and test fit it in the van. Seems like it's gonna work. So I'm gonna go ahead and snap the second line. Forgive my messy closet and everything else. There's a reason why I'm buying a van and building it rather than just buying one built out. And you could see why. Go ahead and make this second cut. I mean, you gotta love this layout. It's perfect for doing this type of work. I got a vacuum anyway, so. I notice once you get started, it goes a little bit smoother. Just trying to keep the blade as straight up and down as possible and do this grade. I always say, just let the knife do the work. That gel coat on the bottom, or that gel padding, is a bit harder to cut through, but once you get it started, it seems to go pretty smooth. Try to keep this even at the end. I think on the last cut, it was a little bit on an angle because it was sagging. Go. Hopefully it works. When I made the decision on this mattress, there's a few things I looked at. One was, what it's made of and where it's made. Obviously, if you're gonna buy something at this price, it's gonna be made in China. They say it's Pure certified, but in looking at the tag, that just means the companies that made this or that make these types of mattresses basically started a certification thing that they can voluntarily submit their product to. This one did, so it is Pure certified, which means it's like low VOCs. There's no heavy metals, probably at measurable levels that the FDA probably allows. So I feel somewhat safe. I'm not breaking out in hives yet. So gonna go put that in the van and test it and just see how it looks. Okay, so it's in here. I mean, not the greatest lumbar, but I figure pillows in there and that'll kind of give you a little bit of a seat back. The problem with the van is that it curves up and in towards the top, so no getting around it. Obviously it looks like it takes up quite a bit of space, but not too bad. I'm able to sit in there and kind of slouch back. I mean, I'm 5'8", so I think max it's going to be 6 feet, and you're gonna have to slouch down quite a bit. But with the sunken part here, this drops down in, and it looks like there's some extra space there, so I might even actually glue a piece of that extra that I have on the base of this so that it actually sits in there and you can have a full usable space. Oh, hi. What do you think? Huh? And that way, when this pulls out, that pulls that way, and then that little extra L piece will drop down in there and give support all the way up to the wall. So now, as you can see, with the bed fully extended, that drops down, and you see in there is just that little void. And since this is 2 pieces, I wonder if I can just take that cooling gel piece, cut it to that size, and then drop it in there, glue it to this piece. Obviously, the cooling gel is going to be on the top if it cools at all, but I'm hoping that it does since I run pretty hot. So I'm gonna go look at the piece that I have left over from there and see what will work in there. Obviously I don't want to lose access to this, but these are pretty lightweight and easy to move around, so ultimately if I need to get in there, I'll just move some cushions around, drop them on the floor and be able to lift that up. I'll actually say, as I'm walking with it, the cooling gel side does feel a bit cooler than the actual high density side, so there's some promise there. I'm gonna try to carefully separate this cooling gel. Seems like it's coming up okay, so at least I can have like the 2 separate pieces and see what's gonna work in there. When you're separating these 2 pieces, just be sure to support as close to each side as possible. You don't want to get too far away, or you could put a big tear in it and then you're really screwed. So I gotta cut this thing to width. I'm gonna try the bandsaw. I'm guessing it's gonna go a lot faster. Obviously you could use a knife again, but this just seems simpler since I have it on hand. So I'm gonna try this out. Actually it works out perfect at this end line, matches up perfect with the width I need. So with all this shit in the way, and also I have the vacuum set up on here, so I'm not going to be blowing all this mattress foam everywhere out into the environment, and hopefully suck up most of it here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I wish I had that for the larger pieces. I mean, cut clean. Gonna go put it in there, test it out. Alright, well it fits in there pretty well. Like an idiot, I measured from the back side, which is the thinnest from point to point, but It's okay if there's a little bit of give in there. Still mostly do its job. It's just to provide support. The problem now is, of course, it's going to be too thick. I thought maybe if it was pressed down it'd be fine, but it's so raised up when I put this on there that it's going to be weird. The gel is too thin, so I'm going to have to probably trim that, which I'm hoping I can do on the bandsaw. There, so as you can see, if I glue that onto there, it sits back in behind and actually kind of wedges a bit better. And then when I take it down, that part seats in that back little shelf area and creates an even portion where it won't sink down if you get all the way to the edge, which is not likely. It's just an extra support piece so you're not rolling into the side there. Okay, so I'm gonna spray adhesive this back onto there using some Gorilla spray adhesive. I hope it works. I know sometimes you need specialized glues for these types of foams, but I'm gonna give it a try just on a little corner and then see how it goes from there. And what you do with this is you spray this side and this side, and you let that set up for a minute, and then you press it down. Well, I wrapped it back up. I know it doesn't look pretty. I don't like the way the top pitches out, but it's gonna have to do for this weekend until I can get these individually wrapped and make them separate cushions. This is just the cover that I had for it, so I might be able to split it into two and kind of sew those together, zip them together, and make it two separate pieces. So here's kind of the finished product. I mean, still put a sheet on it and stuff. The back, you know, is going to be a little bit inverted. There's just nothing I can do about that. When you actually sit in it, though, it's not too bad. It kind of forms back in just because it's, you know, memory foam, so you can sit back in it. Also put in just these little front blockers, and actually those are just my end pieces off of these slats, so it just kind of stops the mattress from coming out. It holds it in there. So all in all, you know, it turned out pretty well. Also put in these clasps here to hold it in place when you're driving, and I got one on the other side too. So when you're ready to pull it out, obviously it's not ideal, just because of the cabinet being in the way, but it's fairly light, so it comes out pretty easily. And then as you can see, drop that in. That falls into place back there. So there's from the back, and then it is nice because down here, if you did leave the bed down, it gives you some extra storage space down there. And yeah, it worked out pretty well the first night staying in it, so not a ton of headroom, but it is what it is at this point. So there you go, bed installed. And how the drawer pulls out. Got some random stuff in there. Got like my jack. That's where I put my toolbox too. And I'm going to go over this again with an epoxy just to make it a little bit smoother. But it'll give you a space to kind of set up a camp stove on, do your cooking. Then when you're ready to put it back up, That slots down in. Just roll this in. Actually runs really smoothly with the wheels and everything, so I'm happy with that. Get everything latched in and it's good to go. So there you go, guys, bed's installed. Been a long time to kind of get this set in place. I'm happy it's here. It worked out well for just a short camp that did a couple weeks ago, and you know, there's not much headroom. You know, it's enough space to where you're not absolutely crammed down in, and the piece locking in this back give me a little extra space. That extra 7-8 inches I think is really going to be nice. You can go all the way up to here, you're not sinking down in, and it gives you, you know, enough space to comfortably fit 2 people, and that was what I was going for. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave in the comments below, and if you enjoy the extremely long time it's taken me to do this van and the videos I've put up, please consider subscribing. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.